family do not talk to me because they think that I, at the age of 16, did something with her partner at the time. And I have been a nervous wreck to talk about something like this and to tell this story. A, because of my family, because I don't want people, it's not to hurt people to tell my story. But at the same time, I've been working through this so much in therapy, and this is something that goes way deep to my core in terms of worthiness and how I feel about myself. And it's been such a journey. It's that moment of my life where I have to fully confront it and face it and talk about it, but talk about it because I also want to shed light for the women and the men and anybody who has gone through something like this, where you were underage and something in that sort of manner happened in terms of that sort of word of abuse. And I feel like I have to be careful with what I'm saying here because I don't want to be banned from talking about these situations, but also we kind of have to talk about it. I'm also not very good at storytelling and I'm new to all this, and I'm also trying to get ready at the same time and tell a story. And I feel like the story is quite complicated and detailed, so bear with me here. Yeah, so one of my aunts does not talk to me because I guess she felt like I did something with her partner at that time and nothing happened, but I'm gonna try to tell this story quickly and also not name any names. And so I was with this aunt for the summer with my sister, and I can't remember how much time had passed since we were.
It detonated without warning. No teaser, no build-up. Just a single line that ripped through the internet like a blade. They were never silent by choice. Within minutes, timelines froze, group chats exploded, and fans realized something terrifying was unfolding in real time. This wasn't another messy Braxton rumor. This was a reckoning. Ashlee and Tamar Braxton, two women the public thought they understood, were suddenly at the center of a revelation so disturbing insiders say it was buried for decades to protect a sacred image. What the world is discovering now is darker than anyone imagined. According to leaked messages, secret recordings, and private conversations never meant to surface, silence wasn't encouraged in the Braxton family. It was enforced. And the person demanding it was the one no one ever questioned. Evelyn, the matriarch. The moral authority. The woman portrayed as the glue holding everything together. But behind closed doors, sources claim she was the gatekeeper of fear. Ashlee allegedly knew too much. Tamar allegedly spoke too loud. And every time one of them tried to tell their truth, the consequences were swift and brutal. Threats of being cut off. Faith twisted into control. Love turned conditional. Old clips are resurfacing. Awkward pauses. Forced smiles. Moments that suddenly make sense in the most chilling way. Fans are asking why Ashlee always stood in the background. Why Tamar, the loudest voice, would suddenly go quiet in certain rooms. Now the answers are spilling out, and they're poisonous. This isn't just family drama. This is a lifetime of buried trauma clawing its way to the surface. And what Ashlee and Tamar are finally exposing is so explosive. It could shatter the Braxton legacy forever. The silence didn't break all at once. It cracked, slowly, painfully, like glass under pressure that had been pretending to be solid for decades. It began with Ashlee Braxton posting a single sentence at 1:43 a.m. A time when truths usually escape their cages. I was told my pain would destroy the family if I spoke. No names, no details. But within minutes, Tamar Braxton reposted it with 3 words that detonated everything. She's not lying. That was the moment fans knew this wasn't vague trauma bait. This was an exposure. And it was personal. Insiders immediately began whispering that what was coming had been locked away, not by NDAs alone, but by fear so...
When we got home, and when I think it was my stepmother was going through my phone and she found this conversation, this sort of conversation, and she showed it to my dad, and my dad called that aunt and we spoke about it and we talked about it a little bit. And I remember just a lot of emotions, was a lot going on. I was 16 at the time and I'm 32 now. I had to think about it. I'm 32 now. And so, my God, it's been 16 years. This is wild. Anyway, okay. So, yeah, my aunt was there for me. She was very kind and very nice. And was like, I'm so sorry that this happened to you, blah. And not blah, but she was very kind, and it just felt like safe, you know? But then as the years have gone by, like that mood and that assumption that I didn't do anything because I was a child was not that assumption anymore. And it boggles my mind because it was like, wait, but if it happened or if it was true, then that would make him, you know, and like, you're okay with that? Like that's what you would like to hear? I will just never forget how when I got older, I just realized that I really had to take the time and go back to that part of my life and understand how much feeling like I didn't matter, that I was unworthy. It just felt like love from my family was just cut off and gone. And you're like, but wait, that guy? And it made it even worse because it was like, wait, this guy that was doing this to you on TV, and like, it's kind of in cohorts in the same spirit of what was happening. Not in the same cohorts in the same spirit, but like, you know, like it's so painful. And I know that the ladies, the men, everybody who has experienced this sort of feeling when your family doesn't believe you, or when you're at an age where you shouldn't have been put in that situation to have to navigate it. And however you navigate it was however you navigated it. And that's what I learned in therapy is like how I navigated it and how I dealt with it was how I dealt with it. But the most important thing to understand is that I never should have been put in that spot in the first place. And I think that's the devastating part.
I fear so deep it rewired how these women learned to survive. Ashlee, the Braxton nobody ever explained. The one always present but never centered had been holding on to something heavy. Tamar, the loudest voice in the family, had been holding back far more than she ever let on. And according to what's now spilling out, the reason was one person's iron grip on the truth. Private messages allegedly sent between Ashlee and a former confidant surfaced on a burner account, claiming she'd been warned from a young age that speaking would cost her everything: family, shelter, identity, love. One message read, "I was raised knowing silence was the price of belonging." Fans immediately started revisiting old footage. The way Ashlee was rarely acknowledged. The way conversations would stop when she entered the room. The way Tamar's energy shifted whenever their mother appeared. It was all suddenly impossible to unsee. Then came the audio clip. Grainy, clearly old. A woman's voice unmistakably maternal saying, "You don't tell stories that embarrass this family, ever." The clip cut off before any response could be heard. Tamar didn't deny it. She went live instead. No makeup, no filter. Her voice shook as she said, "I've been carrying guilt that was never mine." That was all she said before ending the live. The internet went nuclear. Sources began claiming that Evelyn's control wasn't loud or violent. It was strategic, emotional, spiritual. According to alleged insiders, religion was used as leverage. Obedience framed as holiness. Silence reframed as respect. Ashlee allegedly tried to speak up as a teenager and was told she was being used by the devil. Tamar allegedly questioned decisions as an adult and was accused of bringing shame to the family. Screenshots of supposed texts circulated showing Bible verses sent immediately after Tamar tried to set boundaries. A daughter who dishonors her mother brings ruin to her house. Fans recoiled. Therapists on social media began calling it spiritual manipulation. And then Ashlee broke. In a now viral video, she spoke through tears, saying she learned early that love could be withdrawn without warning, that she was praised when quiet and punished when curious. She described feeling like a guest in her own bloodline. Tamar sat beside her.
I fled the country because I was needing to save my own self and my own life. And when I say all of this is not a dig to my family member because it's really sad that she also was put in that situation, having to deal and having to handle. Like, I don't wish that upon anyone either. There's sympathy there, but there's also so many other aspects of it when you're a child and you're like denied a voice. It's pretty much been like a lifelong battle for me. So it's been if you've ever been that person, I'm gonna go to part 2. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Okay, so this is part 2 of my aunt doesn't talk to me because she thinks that I did something with her partner. And if you watched part 1, you could probably understand what's happening. And like I said, it's really difficult to talk about because I just don't want to be rude, because this happens to people where they've experienced some sort of abuse and then someone's told them that it hasn't happened or that it's their fault, or like they've just, but then as I like have now lived in Europe for 10 years and I've traveled the world, it happens across the world, which makes it even more important to talk about, because a lot of people are going through this, but they're not allowed to say, or they're embarrassed, or they just feel like it's not something that they can even talk about. So for me, it was difficult because I realized that my aunt was starting to feel this way, that I initiated, or that it was not like I'm a part of the problem to blame. And I was saying before that I never should have been put in that situation as a kid at all, ever, especially when there's an adult involved. And so I essentially left the US in 2014 and I went to Paris, and I was there for about 4, almost 5 years. And I'm so irritated at myself because I left right before I was supposed to get my citizenship there. But anyway, and now I'm here in Barcelona, Spain. And I've been in Europe for almost like 9 years now. And this subject has just come up for me at my therapy. And I'm addressing it, and I'm talking about it, and I'm shedding light on it, and I'm shedding awareness on it. And I just want to encourage other people, share your story, and to find love and to find self-love for yourself and for everyone else involved, and just know and understand that it's not your...
Sat beside her, nodding, whispering, same. That single word echoed louder than any scream. The leaks didn't stop. A supposed former producer anonymously claimed Evelyn had final approval over what made it to air. Scenes where Tamar cried too, honestly, were allegedly cut. Moments where Ashlee showed vulnerability were allegedly removed entirely. An email chain surfaced where someone wrote, "We can't show this. It makes the matriarch look bad." Fans began connecting dots with terrifying clarity. This wasn't just a family dynamic. It was a system. One built to protect an image at any cost. Ashlee revealed she once tried to write about her experiences, only to be told she'd be cut off financially if she went public. Tamar admitted she was made to apologize on camera for emotions she never should have had to justify. "I wasn't too emotional," she said quietly. "I was suffocating." The comment sections turned into confessionals. Survivors shared stories of being silenced by parents who hid behind faith and reputation. The Braxton name trended worldwide, not for music, but for pain. Then came the confrontation everyone had been waiting for. According to sources, Ashlee and Tamar sat down with Evelyn off-camera weeks before the leaks. What was supposed to be a reconciliation allegedly turned into a standoff. Ashlee reportedly asked why her voice was always treated as a threat. Tamar reportedly demanded to know why truth was framed as betrayal. The room allegedly went cold. One insider claims Evelyn said, "You don't understand what I protected you from." Tamar fired back, "No, you protected yourself." The meeting ended abruptly. No hugs, no resolution. Days later, the leaks began. Coincidence? Fans don't think so, especially after Tamar posted a cryptic message. "I'm done protecting people who never protected me." Social media erupted into chaos. Old interviews were dissected frame by frame. A clip resurfaced where Evelyn once said, "Some things don't need to be spoken." At the time, it sounded wise. Now, it sounded ominous. Ashlee shared a childhood journal entry that read, "If I talk, I lose my home." Tamar reposted it with a broken heart and the words, "We were trained to disappear." That sentence hit like a gut punch. Celebrities chimed in, praising their courage without naming names. Others stayed silent. The rest of the Braxton family said nothing. No statements. No support. No denial. And that silence only made the accusations feel heavier. What fans didn't expect was the next reveal. A leaked voicemail allegedly left by Evelyn years ago, warning Ashlee not to attend a panel on generational trauma. The voice says, "Don't embarrass us. Don't make me choose." Ashlee claimed that voicemail ended her plans to speak publicly for nearly a decade. Tamar admitted she heard similar threats dressed up as concern. It was always about legacy, she said. But whose? The narrative was shifting fast. This wasn't about a strict mother. This was about control masquerading as care. And just when it seemed the truth couldn't get any darker, a new document began circulating, redacted, legal-looking, allegedly confirming that Ashlee was discouraged from seeking therapy without family approval. Tamar reacted to it live, her hands shaking. "This is why we're broken," she whispered. The live cut out mid-sentence, and that's where everything stopped. No clarification, no response. Just fragments of truth floating in the open, daring someone to deny them. Fans refreshed feeds obsessively. Blogs scrambled for confirmation. And one question burned louder than all the rest. If this is what Ashlee and Tamar are willing to reveal now, what are they still holding back? The fallout didn't slow down. It multiplied. What started as whispers turned into a digital wildfire that no PR team could smother. Within hours of the last leak, new burner accounts appeared, each dropping fragments that felt too detailed to ignore. Screenshots of group chats allegedly involving extended family members began circulating, showing frantic messages about containment, image control, and keeping Ashlee away from microphones. One message, time-stamped years earlier, read, "If she talks, everything unravels." Fans weren't speculating anymore. They were watching a cover-up collapse in real time. Tamar broke her silence again, this time with fury instead of tears. She posted, "I was told telling the truth was betrayal. Turns out lying was the tradition." That single post ignited another wave of chaos. Old allies distanced themselves. Former insiders suddenly remembered things they couldn't say before. And the narrative everyone had accepted for years began to rot from the inside out. Ashlee's story grew heavier with every hour. She released a voice memo recorded years ago and never meant for the public, where she described being warned that speaking up would make her ungrateful and unlovable. Her voice cracked as she said, "They taught me early that my existence was conditional." Tamar reposted it with a caption that cut deep. "This is what silence sounds like when it finally breaks." Fans noticed something else too. The language in Ashlee's pain mirrored Tamar's old interviews almost word for word. Different years. Same wounds. Same phrases. Same fear. That's when people realized this wasn't about one daughter being sensitive. It was about a pattern. A system. A script that punished anyone who deviated from the matriarch-approved version of reality. Then came the receipts no one expected. Alleged contracts surfaced online, heavily redacted but chilling nonetheless. Clauses referencing family confidentiality, moral alignment, and prohibited disclosures. Legal analysts on social media weighed in, saying the language looked designed to intimidate rather than protect. Tamar confirmed the rumors without confirming the documents. "I was told certain topics would cost me everything," she said during a late-night live. "Not just money. My place in the family." Ashlee added fuel by revealing that a publishing deal once fell apart after a private call was made behind her back. She didn't name who made it. She didn't have to. Fans filled in the blanks instantly. The comment sections turned brutal. Words like gatekeeper, control, and emotional imprisonment trended alongside the Braxton name. Evelyn still hadn't spoken, and that silence was starting to look less like dignity and more like strategy. The most explosive moment came when a former family associate went public anonymously, claiming Evelyn orchestrated loyalty tests behind the scenes. According to this source, daughters were rewarded when they defended the family narrative and iced out when they questioned it. Tamar, the source claimed, was repeatedly told she was too powerful to be unchecked. Ashlee was described as too unpredictable to be visible. Fans lost it. Clips resurfaced showing Tamar being scolded on camera, her emotions framed as instability. Scenes where Ashlee might have spoken were nowhere to be found. People started asking how much of what they watched was real and how much was carefully curated obedience. Tamar addressed that directly. Reality TV was never reality, she said. It was control with better lighting. Social media didn't just react. It revolted. Survivor communities rallied behind Ashlee. Therapists broke down the alleged tactics on live streams, calling it classic gaslighting reinforced by power and faith. One viral thread dissected how scripture can be twisted into emotional handcuffs. Another pointed out how often strong Black matriarchs are shielded from accountability. Tamar leaned into that conversation, saying, "Honoring your mother shouldn't mean erasing yourself." That quote spread everywhere. Meanwhile, Ashlee shared a photo from a family event where she was physically present but cropped out of the official image. "This was normal," she wrote. "Being invisible was the role I was assigned." The image hit harder than any accusation. Because it looked intentional. Because it looked familiar. Because it confirmed what fans had felt for years but couldn't prove. Behind the scenes, sources claimed panic was setting in. Damage control calls were allegedly made. Mediators were suggested. Quiet apologies were offered off camera. Tamar refused all of it. Ashlee didn't respond. Instead, they appeared together in a short, unedited clip filmed in a car. Voices low, eyes tired. Tamar said, "We're not doing this behind closed doors anymore." Ashlee added, "We tried silence. It almost destroyed us." No theatrics. No tears. Just resolve. And it scared people. Because women who stop begging for understanding are dangerous to systems built on control. Blogs reported that meetings were being held without them. That narratives were being prepared in case things escalated further. And then, like a final match tossed into gasoline, a producer from the old show allegedly leaked an email claiming Evelyn demanded edits whenever conversations got too therapeutic. One line stood out. "Healing doesn't test well with audiences." Fans were disgusted. The pressure mounted until something snapped. Ashlee posted a long statement detailing how she'd been discouraged from seeking help as a teen because outsiders ask questions. Tamar confirmed it with a nod, saying she was taught to pray instead of process. "Prayer without accountability is just silence with better branding," she said. That sentence alone sparked 1,000 debates. Religious leaders weighed in. Mental health advocates amplified it. The story outgrew celebrity gossip and turned into a cultural reckoning. And still, Evelyn said nothing. No denial, no explanation. No apology. The rest of the family remained quiet too. And that collective silence felt coordinated, calculated. Fans began asking who else knew and said nothing. Who benefited from the erasure? Who chose comfort over truth? The tension reached its peak when Ashlee hinted there was more. Much more. She posted a single black screen with white text. The silence wasn't just emotional. It was enforced. Tamar reposted it with a warning. What's coming next changes everything. Comment sections froze. Blogs held drafts. Fans braced themselves. Because if what had already surfaced was this devastating, whatever Ashlee and Tamar were about to reveal next wasn't just going to hurt feelings. It was going to expose how deep the control really went, and whether the Braxton legacy could survive what the truth was about to do to it. By the time the third wave hit, no one was pretending this was just gossip anymore. This felt surgical, deliberate, like years of silence had been archived, labeled, and finally unlocked all at once. Ashlee didn't tease it. She didn't soften it. She dropped it raw. A single post appeared without warning. I was contractually muted. No explanation. No names, just that sentence. Tamar reposted it seconds later with, "And so was I." That was the moment the narrative shifted from emotional abuse to something colder, more calculated. Fans weren't just angry now. They were alarmed. Because contracts meant planning. Contracts meant intention. Contracts meant this silence wasn't accidental. It was designed. It wasn't accidental. It was designed. Within hours, heavily redacted documents began circulating from anonymous sources claiming to be former legal associates. Clauses referencing non-disparagement, family legacy protection, and restricted disclosures related to internal matters. Tamar addressed it without denying it. She went live, staring straight into the camera, and said, "We were told our truth was a liability." Ashlee followed with a quiet post explaining that speaking freely would have meant financial ruin and permanent exile. "They didn't just scare us," she wrote. "They cornered us." Fans began to realize the silence they'd watched on television for years wasn't hesitation. It was survival. Old moments replayed differently now. Tamar backing down mid-argument. Ashlee fading into the background. It wasn't compliance. It was coercion. Then came the memory Ashlee said she'd never shared publicly before. She described being 14, pulled out of school after trying to speak to a counselor. According to her, she was told family matters didn't belong outside the house. That people would twist her story, but she'd be blamed. Tamar confirmed she remembered that day. She wasn't confused, Tamar said. She was brave. That admission broke something open, because it confirmed this wasn't about adulthood disagreements. This was about control starting early, conditioning silence before a voice could fully form. The internet reacted violently. Survivors flooded the comments. Experts weighed in, calling it a classic isolation tactic. And still, the one person at the center of it all remained silent. As pressure mounted, more insiders came forward. A former assistant claimed edits were demanded whenever Ashlee appeared too prominently. A stylist alleged wardrobe changes were made to keep her visually separate. A producer said Tamar's most vulnerable moments were reframed as instability to undermine her credibility. None of it was proven. None of it was denied. And that absence of denial spoke louder than any statement. Tamar addressed the pattern head-on. When a woman tells the truth too clearly, she said, "You don't argue with her. You discredit her." Ashlee echoed it in writing. "They didn't say I was wrong," she wrote. "They said I was dangerous." The most chilling reveal came late one night when a sworn, partially redacted affidavit began circulating, allegedly submitted by a former therapist who had since been granted permission to speak in limited terms. The document claimed Ashlee was discouraged from continuing therapy without family oversight, that seeking help independently was framed as betrayal. Tamar read excerpts aloud on a live stream, her voice cracking as she struggled to finish. "They told us healing would tear the family apart," she said. "But look at what silence did." The live ended abruptly when Tamar covered her face and whispered, "I can't protect this anymore." The screen went black. Fans sat in stunned silence. When Evelyn finally spoke, it wasn't the response anyone expected. A short statement appeared through a representative, vague and carefully worded. No names, no apologies. Just a line about families facing storms and faith restoring what's broken. The backlash was immediate. Comment sections flooded with disbelief. "Still hiding," one fan wrote. "Still controlling the narrative," another said. Tamar responded directly saying, "You don't heal storms by pretending they were just rain." Ashlee didn't respond at all. Her silence this time felt different. It wasn't fear. It was restraint. Days later, Ashlee and Tamar appeared together at a small, unannounced speaking event. No press, no cameras, now 5 night exits so someone in the audience went live. They sat side by side, hands clasped, no glam, no script. Ashlee spoke first. She said she spent years believing her pain was an inconvenience. Tamar followed, admitting she confused loudness with freedom when she was still being controlled. "We weren't raised to speak," Tamar said. "We were raised to perform silence." The room reportedly erupted into tears. But the most haunting part came at the end, when Ashlee looked out and said, "There's still one thing we haven't shared. Tamar nodded. Because it doesn't just change how you see us, she added. It changes how you see everything. That single sentence reignited the fire. Blogs speculated wildly. Fans dissected every word. What could be worse than emotional control, spiritual manipulation, and contractual silence? Ashlee posted one last message that night. Some truths don't just expose pain. They expose systems. Tamar reposted it with, "And the system is panicking." Insiders claimed emergency meetings were happening behind the scenes. Narratives were being drafted. Damage control was in motion. But it felt too late. Because the audience had shifted. People weren't asking for explanations anymore. They were asking for accountability as the noise reached a deafening pitch. Ashlee hinted that what was coming next wouldn't be shared on social media. Receipts don't always live online, she wrote. Some live in courtrooms. Tamar followed with a chilling line. Silence was enforced. And enforcement leaves a paper trail. The internet froze. Screens refreshed endlessly. Comment sections filled with one word repeated thousands of times. What? No clarification came. No follow-up post. Just quiet. But this time, it wasn't the silence of fear. It was the silence before impact. And everyone watching knew one thing for certain. Whatever Ashlee and Tamar were about to reveal next wouldn't just shake a family. It would expose how far people will go to bury the truth. And what happens when the truth finally refuses to stay buried? If you're still here, it's because something in this story hit a nerve. This isn't just about celebrities, cameras, or a famous last name. This is about silence being forced, truth being punished, and voices being erased to protect power. And if you think this kind of control only happens behind Hollywood gates, think again. Stories like this live in families, churches, communities, and homes everywhere. That's why walking away from this conversation isn't neutral. It's a choice. Right now, engagement is power. When you like this video, you're telling the algorithm this story matters. When you comment, you're pushing it into spaces where silence usually wins. And when you subscribe, you make sure these conversations don't disappear the moment they get. It's uncomfortable. So don't just watch. Speak. Have you ever been told to stay quiet for the sake of family? To protect someone else's image while your pain was treated like a threat? Drop your story in the comments. You're not alone, and your voice might be the one someone else needs to hear tonight. Share this video with someone who understands what it feels like to be silenced. Because the more this spreads, the harder it becomes to bury the truth again. This story isn't over. What's coming next could change everything we think we know, and missing it means letting the loudest narratives win. Hit subscribe so you don't get left behind when the next chapter drops. Turn on notifications. Stay locked in. Because silence only survives when people stop paying attention. And right now, attention is the most dangerous thing the truth can have.